Well, hi and hello, my friends. Before we jump in, I'm seeing from a lot of people, this is your first webinar back after the holidays, your first time back with us. And I'm so excited that I get to be here with all of you. Welcome. We have quite a day in front of us. Today, we are talking about the responsible data revolution, better student outcomes, and better reporting using CRM data. That's a lot of good things. Now, today's fascinating webinar is, of course, sponsored by Salesforce and their partner Form Assembly and produced by SmartBrief. My name is Jess Steinbach with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm very happy, as I said, that I get to be here with you today, not just because this is also my first webinar back after the holidays, so I'm really happy to be back in the seat with all of you, in the room with all you wonderful people, but also because we have some really cool things that we're digging into today. And I was thinking about as we started prepping for this, if you think back to your college days, and for me, I'm a St. Olaf grad, so I think of these like big, beautiful stone arches and creeping ivy and incredible architecture that we had on campus. Absolutely beautiful. You know, those halcyon days of the university life. I'm ignoring the stress headaches and long hours in the library. We're just going to put that aside. But we have these beautiful physical campuses that are just aging gracefully, standing resolute, right? But in many cases, for a lot of these higher ed organizations, their digital infrastructure is struggling under the weight of that technical debt, struggling to keep up. So in order to stay agile, institutions are looking to consolidate on some of these modern systems in order to create a unified view, to unify student data into one single system of record. That is so important. And this improves a lot of internal reporting and decision making. That's obviously a huge win. But the big challenge really stays. How do you actually use that data in order to improve the student experience? How do you put that into action while, very important, keeping it all safe, keeping it all compliant? And that is what I'm really excited to get into today. We get to sort of walk through our hallowed grounds in memory, or maybe, you know, hopefully you're working at a university right now. Maybe you get to walk those hallowed grounds every day. But today we're also going to step into the digital architecture. And with the help of some wonderful expert presenters, we will show you exactly how you can bridge that gap, putting that data into action, keeping things safe and compliant, all the important things there. I cannot wait to get started. As I said, it's going to be a great day. We're going to get rolling in just a few moments here, but I want to take you through a few important housekeeping points, really to help you get the most out of your time here with us. Like I said, if it's been a couple of weeks that you haven't been in a webinar with us now over the holidays, we might need a little refresher, right? So we're gonna jog our memories here. So let's start out. Let's hop on over to the chat tab, and we're going to have a little bit of an open conversation as we go through our day together today. I see some wonderful highs and hellos coming in already. We've got, let's see, I've got Kenneth here and Mark and Jenna and Jared and Stuart and Saeed. Oh man, we've got a whole awesome crew. Keep those highs and hellos coming. As we go through our day today, we're going to do some polls. We're going to have an interactive conversation. We've got some Q&A. So we want to hear from you. So make sure you're saying hi and hello in that chat tab. Now, if you take two little hops over, do you see the Q&A tab there? The Q&A tab is where you get those questions directly to our expert presenters. So if the chat tab is where we're having our little, let's think in the higher ed metaphor, we're like standing in the hallway before we go into class and we're having a little conversation before we go into the lecture hall. That's the chat tab. But the Q&A tab is now we're in the lecture hall and we're asking those questions directly of our professor. I like this. I'm going to play with this metaphor for the rest of the day. So we've got chat, Q&A, and then in the middle, we've got that docs tab. That is where you're going to find all of the wonderful resources. These are your handouts. These are your class handouts. Oh, this works really well. So any of the class handouts that you're getting today, those are in the docs tab. So make sure you spend some time exploring that there. I also want to call out, and I saw some folks asking about this, we have closed captioning available on the platform. So if that would be helpful for you, it's down in that bottom right-hand corner. Make sure you've got that enabled. You can also make the screen full size. So if you want to see everyone's beautiful faces a little bit clearer, you can kind of go full screen down again in that bottom right-hand side. If you have any technical issues today, the wonderful Riley is here with us, so you can post in chat and ask her for a hand. She is always happy to help. And I think the last most important thing to talk about today, well, the most important thing is what's coming up in our discussion, but the last important thing for the housekeeping is that we do have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away at the end of our session. So you need to stay with us all the way through our day today, and we will give that away to someone who is here live and present and does meet all of those SmartBrief terms and conditions. So stay tuned for that. Whew, okay, well, that was a lot of housekeeping. I think let's talk about the agenda. let's talk about what's in store for us today, because we have some great stuff, as you can see. What's going to happen in just a second here is I'm going to bring out all of our wonderful speakers. We'll do some introductions. We'll get to know who's who in the zoo here. Then we're going to sit around and talk about all this cool stuff. So we're going to have a nice free-flowing conversation. We're just going to open it up and see where the information kind of takes us. So that's where we definitely want to hear from you in chat and in Q&A. Then we're going to get into a demo. So we've got a really fun demo. I know that is always where you get to see everything in action, right? So stay tuned for that demo. And then finally, we'll get into some Q&A. Hopefully we'll have some time and we'll get into some of your wonderful questions. That's the whole run of show for the day today. Let's get our wonderful speakers out. I'm going to introduce our speakers here and then we'll get things rolling because we've got a lot of great stuff to cover. Okay, so today, as you can see, look at this rock star lineup. I love this crew. Okay, Brian Karsinski, Salesforce Solution Architect at the University of Florida. We've got Kelly Walsh, Account Director at Higher Education Advisor at Coastal, and Shakima Franklin, Customer Success Engineer at Form Assembly. Quite the crew. Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hello.
Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have all of you here with me. You know what? We're gonna drop the slides and we're just gonna go to a casual chat and start out with a little free flow. Kelly, Shakima, Brian. Ooh, before we start, Brian, can I put you in the hot seat for a second?
Sure.
Okay, audience, get ready. We need a vote. We were having a heated discussion, just almost came to blows over color, and so we need your opinion. We couldn't decide if we liked Brian's blue background or his orange background. So you have to vote. Okay, blue or orange? Blue, mostly blue. Okay, yeah, the orange is too much. Is that
Going back.
Brian, you popped none. We don't. The orange is too bright. Okay, all right. Thank you. I appreciate the producer eyes from our wonderful audience. Brian, we're going to leave you blue, but if at any point, if you feel like you need to grab attention from the audience, you just flip over to that orange.
All right, we'll see.
Okay, I like it. All right, before we jump into our conversation here, we've got some polls that we want to start out with. And so I'm going to open up a poll right now, but I'm just going to open it. I'm not going to share the results with you guys yet. So audience, head over to the polls tab. And you're going to fill that out for us. I'm going to give you a second to answer. Can I start with what is your institution using to manage student data? And the options are student information system, CRM, both, or I don't know. I have no idea, which, by the way, is an okay answer. Brian, I'll ask you to start since you're already in our hot seat. What are you expecting to see from the audience?
I think probably a mix. It's in an ideal world, you have some data that's coming in from your SIS and other systems like your registry, but integrations are not easy. Not every group has the staff to do those integrations with their platform. So I think it'll be a mix.
Okay. Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, same. I would expect to see both as the most common answer. I think that's a pretty common approach to Brian's point. It is integrations are difficult.
All right, Shakima, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the screen now with the live answers coming in, and I'm going to ask you to explain why you think this makes sense or doesn't make sense, whatever it is. Here we go. Drum roll. Ta-da. Okay, so you guys nailed it. 85% saying both. Shakima, is that kind of what you would have expected as well?
Yes, that could be a mix of people who are migrating from one system to the other, or different teams using what works best for them, because I've seen that too. So this is definitely an expected result.
This is what we would expect to see. Somebody called out no one. Joseph was saying no one doesn't know. So we have no one in the unsure category, which is great. At least everyone's aware. Which is nice, good place to start. Okay, let's close that one down. Now I'm going to open up a second poll. And again, I'm going to take that off the screen. We'll just go to us here. So there is a new poll open. If your institution is using a CRM, what are they using? Salesforce Education Cloud, Salesforce Core, some other CRM, or hey, I don't know that. I knew the first one. I don't know the second one. Sorry, friends. That's fine. That's a fine answer. Okay. Now, this one's a little bit trickier in terms of expectations. But Brian, maybe can you tell us in short, because I know we're going to dig into this a little bit more, why you think it should be one, why you like your answer?
Yeah, well, my career is based around Salesforce, so that would be my default answer. But I mean, I think whether it's Salesforce or another platform, just having a CRM in general is something that's necessary for groups as they scale to move away from spreadsheets and databases to really just consolidate and have a cloud-based platform like Salesforce to manage that data and the business processes that go along with it.
That's huge. And Kelly, I'd love to hear from you on that one as well.
Well, I was thinking it's also possible you have multiple, right? You could have an advancement org and a student services org. One could be core, one could be education cloud. So I would expect to see that in some regard. But yeah, also whole career is based on Salesforce. So hoping it's all Salesforce.
I love that. Okay. Shakima, we're going to do the same thing too again. And I do want to call out, Kelly, I think you're exactly right. Emily just posted in the chat, we're using both. So multiples. Let's pull this up and see where we're at. We have about 9-10% in education cloud, about 80% in core, another 10% in a different one. And again, no unsures, which is great. Hey, gold stars to everyone in the audience. You know your stuff. Shakima, what do you think? Is that kind of a reasonable spread?
Yes, Salesforce core is pretty easy to get started with. It's really flexible. You can set up objects, relationships to your own tailored needs. With Salesforce Education Cloud, a lot of it's done for you in terms of the objects they create and the relationships. But if you came in with one idea of how you wanted to shape your data and the Education Cloud didn't work for you, you might just stick with the core product offering. Or you might just be using it multi-purpose. I'm using core for this and something else. So this aligns with what I was expecting to see, though I'm curious what the other options are that we're going to ask.
Hey, if anyone is open to writing in their other, that 10% that said other, please feel free. I would be curious. And interesting. So Jenna says we're using core because we don't yet have enough students to justify the outlay for education as a nonprofit. So that kind of speaks to what you're saying, Shakima. It's a good jumping off point. Interesting. Okay. All right. So now we've got a great idea of where we are. Brian and Kelly, you've got a good idea for where kind of the folks in the audience are seated in this question. I think we should get into our discussion. Shakima, we're going to say goodbye to you temporarily. We're going to bring you back for a demo in just a few minutes here.
All righty. Bye-bye.
We'll see you soon. All right, Kelly, Brian of the blue. Here we go. Are you guys ready to dive into some questions here?
Let's do it.
All right, I like it. So I think I'm going to start out, Kelly, I'm going to kick this first one to you. We started talking a little bit about the challenges and kind of the struggle of maintaining digital infrastructure, especially for higher ed. So I'm curious, in your experience, how you're distinguishing between a system that maybe just needs a little bit of an update, a little zhuzh, and one that is actually contributing to and creating that technical debt that's really hindering your institutional growth.
Yeah, so I think, don't want to offend anyone on the call, but I think we all kind of know higher ed is a little bit more of a slow mover in this space, in the digital space, and we've seen that. And so I think we see a lot of institutions that have that technical debt, and I think the question becomes, if it's technical debt, it's what's it hindering me from being able to do? What can't I do versus what can I do? And that's kind of how you know the difference. And I think being more of a slow mover with these monolithic infrastructures in place, it's a disadvantage, but at the same time, what I've seen is these institutions are seeing what every other industry is doing, retail, for example, and thinking, okay, how can I do that within my institution? How can I have the equivalent of a Target pickup, right? Maybe it's we order our textbooks online and then we go pick them up at the store. And there are some schools that are doing this. And we've seen schools that are using smartphones now for getting into the dorms and other buildings. So I think we're getting there. The conversation is shifting, but there is a lot of technical debt. There's a lot of Band-Aids that were put on poor performing systems. And so getting past that is a hurdle in and of itself before you can even move to, I think, a system like Salesforce, but we're getting there. Brian, curious to hear how that's been at UF.
Yeah, I think here, when we're analyzing systems too, there's still some homegrown, custom-built systems, and those are really the ones that have a ton of technical debt because they don't integrate well. They often act as shadow systems in some ways, or there's delays in the integration. So we have a graduate system here that's being sunset, and the challenge comes in is because that system does a lot of things, and now it's being split off. All those functions are being split between PeopleSoft Campus Solutions, Salesforce, and Slate. And so you're taking one system that was doing everything that a group of users and staff members were relatively happy with, and now you're splitting it up between three systems because that's really appropriately where it should be. But that's not an easy task to do.
Just out of curiosity, and I'm curious if you've had these conversations, is there a piece of advice that you would give to a school that's saying that's too painful to do? Like we know it's short-term pain, but we just don't want to face it?
I mean, you have to have top-down support for it,
Yeah.
right? And that initiative, because getting all those three systems and the people that control them, and then all of the users and stakeholders, for instance, in a group like the graduate school, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of change management. And without that top-down support, it's, from the highest level, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing as well. I think we'll get into this later, Jess. It's more of a shift in thinking and focusing on maybe the student and the student experience and less about records and systems and data, which was always the focus in the past, more of that technical IT focus. Now it's more focused as these schools are jockeying for the best students, right? And trying to recruit the best. It's more focused on what their experience is and making it less fragmented.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to add to that, it's not the easiest to convince, staff members to change their business processes that they've been doing for 10, 15 years, and to get them to see, well, your new business processes are going to be different. Maybe it'll be a little more work in some cases, but it's going to be much, much better for the student experience. And that's not always easy to convey either.
Well, maybe let's talk about that a little bit. And Kelly, you were kind of alluding to this a little bit. When the culture of school, the culture of a team, whether we're talking about the student body or the administration, is a huge part of these. And we've already talked a little bit about change management. I think that's going to come up a lot in our conversation today. So when you find those, what are those operational hurdles and cultural hurdles that you guys have seen, and then maybe some tips on how we could start addressing those as we make this transition?
Yes. So I think we sort of touched on it, right? A lot of the shift is cultural and mindset shift from data and records and system silos to more of that experience, relationship journeys, which some stakeholders just aren't accustomed to thinking about or even talking about. So it's that mindset shift. It's bringing all of the different departments together, admissions, advancement, IT, early on, before you're even at implementation. That's where I've seen success, is if you can invest in this earlier, you can start talking about goals, objectives, visions before you get underway, because folks need to change how they speak about it, how they think about it. I come from an advancement background. And so one thing we would see quite a bit is you could have at any university or institution, you could have a student, Kelly Walsh. I could also be a faculty, right? Technically, and I could also be an alum, right? And if you don't have that student-centric vision, I am known to the university as three separate things, as opposed to having that unified student journey and experience. That gets back to what I was saying at the beginning, more of that relationship building, understanding that Kelly as the student, the faculty, the alum, she's related. She's all one person with different personas, and we treat her as such with our communications. And so that is a complete mindset shift for a lot of institutions.
That's such an interesting thing when we talk about data and higher ed, you know, and a lot of times data just immediately feels like something that's kind of, it's in a box or it's in a spreadsheet, but we're talking about a really, truly human experience here, relationships, and catching people at these very pivotal moments in their life. Education is always pivotal in whatever capacity you're engaging. Brian, I'd love for you to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge in a lot of ways is just, you know, for us, we've had to find ways for that staff member to find some value and benefit too, right? Because they're, you know, you can say, you know, a student and the student experience is going to improve and whatnot, but you really have to have those staff members buy in. So we spend a significant amount of time looking for ways to improve their business processes as well, which just helps with buy-in.
I love that call out, Brian. That's huge. Like I mean, and not to make it oversimplified, but kind of the what's in it for me. Why does this matter to me? How does this impact me? And walking through that is such an important part of that change management element. That's a great call out.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, actually, you know what? I'm thinking I want to ask this question of you, but Kelly, I'd love to hear from you next as well. I'm thinking about, we talked about that unified view at the start of our session here. So when a school does have that unified view of its student data, where are you seeing, maybe if we can outline some kind of specific ways that they could use that single source of truth in order to actually equal that digital experience feeling more personal, less transactional, what Kelly was referencing earlier?
Yeah, for us, I mean, where, you know, students here are accessing their data in various ways. You know, there's a portal online, but then there's a lot of forms that exist, a lot of form assembly forms that exist. And a lot of the groups we're at, I'm in central IT and our enterprise org has 1,300 users at this point. So we have a pretty broad group, and we probably have close to 500 form assembly forms across all those groups right now. And we try and keep branding the same for all those forms. So whether a student's coming to the Disability Resource Center or they're going to see an academic advisor, they're still getting that same feel on the front end of the form. And also, whenever we can, we like to put our forms behind single sign-on. So, you know, so many groups that we bring over to Salesforce, they're asking first name, last name, email, they're asking, what program they're in, what course are you asking about? We have all that data. We're integrating all of that student information system data into Salesforce. So we don't have to ask those questions. And I think that for us also helps, you know, none of us, I'm sure, want to be filling in information that the company that we're dealing with knows already. So that's been helpful for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork in being a student just in general. So, you kind of want to minimize that where you can, and those hoops. And also, I think, Kelly, that speaks to what you said, building that relationship. If I feel like I'm just a number to somebody and I have to retell them who I am every time I do something, that's going to make me feel like this is transactional. But if we have that relationship, you know who I am, just every time I click in, immediately I feel that sense of being at home. Kelly, I'd love to hear more from you on that.
No, that's huge that you all are doing that you can provide that consistent experience across different offices, if it's alumni or admissions or student life, because you all have access to the same information. I think you could also have more personalized communications, kind of what I was alluding to earlier. If I'm 3 different personas, but I'm one person, being able to combine those, being able to even make recommendations based on courses or milestones, you know, depending on where I am in my collegiate journey, that would be huge. And just having all of that data in one place.
Perfect. All right. Sorry, did I cut you off, Brian?
Nope. I think Kelly covered. Yeah, she covered that well.
She did. Excellent. A+. Brian, also, I have to tell you that one of my favorite comments back was when I said Brian of the Blue. Joseph said, Brian of the Blue, first of his name.
I didn't see that. I almost changed it to orange when I saw that. But
please put that on your LinkedIn profile after we leave here. All right. So actually, you know what, Brian, I'd like to dig in a little bit more to the staff side of things, because you did say that one of the things that you found that's very helpful is giving the staff that reason for, hey, this is how this actually makes your life better. So do you have a few examples that you have used, a few reasons that you've given for how the staff can benefit from that better data visibility?
Yeah, we're actually in the middle. We're just going live with a project where we're absorbing an existing Salesforce org into the enterprise org. And this org was smaller, created a long time ago. Going back to that, they didn't have people to do and staff to do the integrations. And so in some ways, it's a little bit of a shadow system for certain things, right? Like they're tracking some information there where it's going to end up in the student information system, but they're updating it in Salesforce first. And so in that project now, when we're bringing it over, we're really eliminating a fair amount of work for the staff members, because we have nightly integrations with PeopleSoft Campus Solutions where we're bringing in all the student data, the programs, the courses, the grades, their statuses, their holds, all of that. And so there's no need to update certain fields locally in their current Salesforce org. So having those integrations and not duplicating some of the data, right? It's just a formula field, and instead of them, having a field that they can edit, it's just coming in and it's a field from our integrations and our student information system. So we're eliminating work for them on that front, and it's just more accurate and timely as well.
Timely and accurate. Those are great reasons. Kelly, anything on your end?
Yeah, just to add, I think that all allows the staff to have more meaningful interactions across the board with those students, right?
You know what I like about what you guys just hit on there is some people are going to resonate with the more logistical reasoning and some people with the more emotional. So being able to hit that on both fronts is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you have to find, and you can't treat everyone the same, right? There's certain staff members that are going to be interested in analytics because they're doing the most work. There's going to be certain ones that want to spend a lot of time on new flashy things and AI, and you kind of have to navigate and figure out which works best for certain people.
Yeah, we can't do anything without talking. We haven't had a conversation if we didn't say AI. I'm shocked we went this far without talking about it, actually. But okay, let's talk a little bit about responsibility. And when I use that word, of course, compliance is kind of what we mean. But there's more than just compliance. And I think that's important to reference. There's sort of our responsibility to our students, responsibility to our staff and our team, and then what keeps us compliant. So I want to dig into that. Kelly, I'm going to kick this first conversation to you to start us out. And then Brian, I'd love for you to chime in. Curious, when it comes to responsibility around student data, what are the benefits, maybe some of the challenges that you have seen, especially when we're looking at that security and compliance? And where do you think that moving into Salesforce is going to help with meeting some of those specific, like Family Education Rights and Privacy Act and kind of meeting that standard?
Yeah, so I'm coming more from the implementation background, in which case I am always pushing to have data governance be a part of the implementation. And then that kind of, depending on where the customer is in their journey with Salesforce, that could be standing up a data governance COE because that's net new to the customer, or it could be helping them to implement some policies and procedures around data if they already have like a governance COE that's already stood up, for example. So it kind of just depends where they are on the curve. I think Salesforce does a great job as a platform of giving you some tools out of the box that help you align to some of the standards like FERPA. So there is role-based access, there's sharing rules that you can configure, and a lot of that will help you. So what I like about that is it's kind of taking the responsibility off the user. Let's not let them have to have the moral judgment. Let's kind of do it for them and only give them access to the things that they really need access to from a record perspective. So I think that's a big part of it. But ultimately, you want to set those policies at a high level. And Brian touched on this before, have the change management underpinning that. because you'll need to train users and establish the policies, kind of roll this all out, set the expectations. So it's not just like a one and done thing, but yeah, kind of removing as much responsibility from the user as you can. And you can imagine, I'm sure at UF, right, a large institution, there's too many users. You can't allow that sort of judgment. You have to kind of lock down the org as much as you can.
Yeah, Brian, I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mentioned the single sign-on before, but we use that in various ways, right? Like all of our users, Salesforce users they only log in through single sign-on. We actually integrate our training dates. So we know if our user is active in FERPA or not. We know a lot of other dates as well, so we can use that. And then on the form assembly side, it's really, before we turned on single sign-on for the front end of form assembly, we would meet with a lot of groups and there would be forms and they'd be like, oh, we can't do this because it's, we're asking a little bit of sensitive information. We don't know that, how do you know it's that person? Things along those lines. But with putting form assembly behind single sign-on, we know for a fact who that person is, right? So we don't have any concerns about the questions we're asking, or if we're, showing, if they have two programs and we're saying, hey, which program is this about? We're not worried about that because they're behind single sign-on, and it's nice and secure for us.
Yeah, I think, just Kelly, I was really resonating as a human with what you said about just don't make me decide, just limit. I think as frustrating as it can be to have to go through security layers, just knowing that that's taken care of, that I have access to what I need and should have access to, right. I think takes a load off my mind. Yeah. Want to make it easy for people where we can, right? Okay, I can't believe how fast this conversation has gone because we've covered a lot, and we're down to my last question that I had for you all. And what I was thinking about and what I wanted to make sure that we hit on as well is that we're in a little bit of a tough time. And I think that's across all industries. And education certainly is not immune to that. So there's a lot of belt tightening happening. And obviously that has impacted a lot of organizations, I'm sure, here in the audience with us today. So I would love to hear from you both. And maybe Brian, we can start with you. How have you seen budget consolidation sort of impacting the technology choices that universities are making? And is there maybe some opportunity there for consolidation that you think maybe people are discounting, we can't afford that, we can't look at that now, that maybe they're missing out on those opportunities?
Yeah, two things come to mind. I think what we've seen here a little bit more is, it's very easy to sign up for a free trial of MailChimp or Qualtrics or whatnot. And, there's groups now that have 3 or 4 different type of form builders and whatnot. And we see more of them coming to us now. And those are tiny costs, but they add up, not to mention the security issues that come with pushing data out to those platforms. But I think that's what we've seen a little bit more from groups is with trying to save some money, they're trying to consolidate and use one form builder and not 4. And then also we here obviously have form assembly, but in the last year, we've brought in 3 different groups on campus that have different orgs into form assembly. So really our form assembly is an enterprise form assembly instance where we're essentially connecting to 4 separate orgs. We've brought those users in. And so that's helped just cut down on not only cost, but just, training. And, we don't have 4 instances out there of form assembly. We have 1 and everyone's in it and there's collaboration, and that's, saved not only time, but money as well. I'm sure, Kelly, you have lots of experience with this that you're seeing.
Absolutely. Completely decentralized. So there, to your point, multiple of the same applications across this institution, one at the business school, one at the School of Communications, et cetera. And so I think in this belt tightening era, it's about strategic consolidation of those applications, for example, where possible, and sometimes even rethinking processes as well and getting creative to utilize what's already in place, what's already been purchased in the best way possible, and get rid of that proliferation that tends to happen across a campus.
Well, these have been great answers, and I really appreciate both of you coming on and engaging in this conversation. I think there's a lot here. Again, we're not just talking about technology, not just data. We're talking about people and across the entire spectrum of involvement with education. And I think there really are some steps that we've outlined that will help folks in the audience. What I'm going to ask you guys to think about. I normally just throw this at you at the end, but here we're gonna build suspense. I'm going to ask you guys to think about, and we'll bring Shakima out to do a bit of a demo, and then I'll bring you guys back. And I'd love to sort of have your one, I know there's not like a magic answer, but if you had one thing that you'd want everyone in the audience to be thinking about, to take action on, to spend some time with when they leave the webinar, each one of you, I'll ask you for that first step, that Brian and Kelly's top picks for things to do after the webinar. But for now, Brian and Kelly, thank you so much for that conversation. Shakima, let's bring you out. Don't go anywhere. Well, you can leave the stage, Brian and Kelly, but don't leave us yet. We're going to bring you back in just a moment here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Shakima, are you ready for a demo?
I sure am.
We have been waiting for this because I think it's so, we've just set the stage really well. Why is this important? Why should we be considering this? What are the opportunities on the table? And now what I'm looking forward to is having you walk us through how we can actually put some of that into action. I see your screen. It looks great. I'm going to leave you to it.
Thank you, Jess. This is Salesforce portal for a student. It's bare bones for this demo, but imagine that you have other resources here, such as registration, courses, information. I picked a time that's really important in a student's life, besides when they start school, when they're ending it. Graduation, commencement, celebration time. So within this portal, they have this information, register, and alumni resources. Today, we'll focus on registration. So when they go to register, we have a form, which is from Form Assembly. And you'll notice immediately that the student doesn't have to fill in their name. They don't have to fill in their student ID. They don't even have to fill in the information about the degree program that they're already registered with, because we have that information and we put that into the form. We'll look at how that happens in a little bit, but for now, I just wanted to point that out in terms of making sure that the students have a good experience with filling out forms, shortening that time, and the university gets the information they need for the different operations that are related to either graduation or some other process that's going on at the moment. So I will fill this form out as myself, Shakima. I'm gonna say this is not correct. For some reason, the system just doesn't have it right. We're gonna choose something else. Cybersecurity. We will note that we will attend in person. My name is going to be exactly the same, and we'll do Shakima. I guess we'll do this for phonetics. You'll notice that after I've selected that I'm attending, I now have new options available to choose from. So this, in a way, combines some of the different forms that students might have to fill out individually for each thing, like one form specifically to register, another to choose the regalia and tickets. And you'll see as we move further along that more options are dynamically shown depending on what the student chooses. So let's say I want to rent because I want to save some money. I'm a student. I don't have a job yet.
We have temporarily lost Shakima. That was such a cliffhanger. That was we were about to see something amazing, and then we've lost Shakima. Okay, hang on. We're gonna see if we can get her to restart and rejoin us. So hang tight, all. You gotta love live theater, right? Always an adventure. All right, we're gonna see if we can get Shikima back on out. I'm gonna give it maybe 30 more seconds, and then if we haven't gotten her back with us, Brian and Kelly, I hope you're ready, because I'm gonna bring you back out. Actually, let's just do that. I'm gonna bring you out. Let's do your top thoughts. Come on out, Kelly. All right, Kelly, I'm gonna get you on stage. All right, we'll get Shikima reset here. Brian and Kelly, I asked you guys, I was going to give you like 10 minutes during the demo, but you now have had 1.5 minutes. What was your top thought? And Kelly, we'll start with you. What was your top thought or action step you'd want the audience to be taking?
I guess my purview is more thinking about how, I'm always thinking Salesforce, but Salesforce is the platform that can serve as the impetus for that entire student journey. And when I say student journey, I mean every touch point that they'll have in their time with an institution. So yeah, just thinking about all of those different touch points and keeping that in mind.
I love that. Brian?
Yeah, it's a little, not necessarily something that's come up today, but here we kind of keep an eye on all of the orgs that are on campus. And one of the common things that we see is there isn't that initial sort of really integration and data foundation. Everyone starts to try and do chatbots and, phone integration and other things when they don't have all of their people and contacts. They don't have all of their just base core data. And even if it's not integrations, right? Like you could be a small college org and you don't have any integrations, but you have 1,000 students. I think that would be the tip is, get the foundational data in there, right? The person, the customer, the student, they're the foundation of everything. And that's where everything jumps off of. So figure that out, figure those objects out, those fields, and then you have a really good foundation to jump off from there.
I love that. That's amazing. That is a great first step and action point. Shikima, welcome back.
I am deeply sorry. That has not happened to me ever.
You know what? If something can go wrong in your system, it'll be when you're in a live event. That is just how that works. Here's what I'm going to do. Shikima, I think what we'll do is we'll take your demo right up almost until the end of our time here. But so what I'm going to sneak in an audience question really quickly, and then we'll jump back into the demo. But I think this is a really interesting one. Can I ask all of you to weigh in on this? Whoever has thoughts, how can a CRM data actually be used to support equitable and inclusive student support opportunities? Is there any? I know we've talked a lot about the students at large, but is there anything specifically for inclusivity, accessibility that you'd want to address?
I think part of that is, like we've talked about, having all of the data in one place. And like Brian was saying, more of that holistic view, you would have all of that information and data and be able to target that student appropriately. So I think that'd be one of the first steps.
Okay.
Yeah,
Brian?
I kind of have a very specific example. Our Disability Resource Center is probably our most extensive user of Salesforce. And they use it to track accommodations and everything else. But where that's benefited the student in a lot of ways is, there's a couple of accommodations for reduced course load, early course registration. They used to pass that data back and forth in spreadsheets and Dropboxes with the registrar. And now, since both groups are in Salesforce, they don't even talk to the registrar's office. The registrar's office just has a report to see the certain accommodations, those 2 accommodations that they need to know about, and they go off of that report in Salesforce, and they don't bother to DRC. So that's very specific, but that would be one example.
Great. Well, I love that. Okay, so we're going to do this. This is, again, the fun thing about live theater. We're going to everything's going to go topsy-turvy now. So we were going to bring you guys in at the end and do a Q&A and then say goodbye. But Brian and Kelly, I'm pulling up your curtain call. We're going to say goodbye to you now, and we're going to take Shikima and the demo all the way through onto the end of our webinar. So Brian and Kelly, I really want to thank both of you again for being here, being part of the conversation, and really bringing in some honest, transparent perspectives on what can be very complex, the human and technology, the change management side of it. Thank you guys very much for sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll say goodbye to Kelly and Brian for now, for always. Hopefully we'll see you again at a webinar again soon. Shakima, we're gonna jump back into this. We're gonna head into our demo and remind us again, just because our memories are short, what are we seeing today?
Sure. What we're seeing is the student experience inside of their portal, where first they had some links and resources. This is a form that combines registration, choosing regalia for graduation, reviewing that information, processing the payment, and moving on to graduate, hopefully after they submit this.
That's the goal, yes. And we're in Education Cloud, correct?
This is actually using the standard CRM for this demo, but since it's Salesforce and Form Assembly connects directly to Salesforce, those Education Cloud specific objects can be mapped so that you can get the information to different teams, you know, the registrar or the bookstore if the student is going to pick it up locally there. So the logistics side would be handled by the CRM. And on the student side, they get the experience that they're expecting. Like, I log in, you know who I am, you already have my information. I don't need to repeat myself and do it again.
All right, Shakima, well, speaking of repeating yourself, let's repeat our demo. Take it away.
Yes. So we were at the point where the student was choosing their regalia and tickets. I would just go back to see that we haven't lost any of that information. We were choosing 2 more tickets because we have a family of 4 instead of 2, and we have a total price here of $20 and our $60 for our rental package. You'll also see that reflected here in the summary. We could choose a big bookstore pickup to save some more money, or we can have it shipped to home. And you'll also notice that we already have an address here. This is pre-filled from the student's information. Same premise. We want to eliminate the additional steps that the student has to take since they are already logged in. This student did not put their state. We will fill that in now. We also have the email filled in. This is pulled in from Salesforce. I've put in some card details here, but a real form would not have this filled in. Just wanted to speed up the process in the demo. So we'll go ahead and submit now. We have a review page just to make sure that everything is correct. And we will confirm our submission. We have a thank you message. We can optionally opt them into alumni communications. I'm going to pretend like I'm a real student and ignore this page and just submit, because that can happen as well. And we're all done. We're still in the portal. We were just at the bottom to focus in. So let's look at what this looks like in Salesforce. Like I said, for this demo, this is simple, base Salesforce. There's no custom objects or relationships, but we will reload here. And at the beginning, I changed to BS in cybersecurity. That's now updated. I have this checkbox for registered to graduate. We'll look at where that's configured. And I have a check marks for whether the student is attending, because they did select on the form that they were going to attend in person. So I'll move over to form assembly. This is our form. You'll see we can have conditional logic to trigger depending on the student's choice. Earlier, we said that the degree information is not correct, so we have that information there. Moving over, we have something called connectors, which allows us to sync information back and forth between Salesforce. You can put those connections on different timelines of the form. So we have form opened, which is what's pre-filling that information about the student. And then after they submit, we can also push information back to Salesforce. So we have that two-way sync. This is just Stripe for payment, which we aren't focusing on today, but that is an option for unifying that experience and collecting payment if that's needed for your use case. I've moved over to the pre-fill connector. I'm just going to quickly explain what you were seeing. So we're looking up a user object because the user's logged into the portal. we're using their portal user ID. This is only available because they've securely logged in. We have that direct link to say, this is Shakima for sure. It's not anybody else. And we use that information that was securely passed over to look up more information about the student to pre-fill the form. So as you saw, the student's name was filled in, their address information, the degree information, and any corrections that they needed to make. So that's the pulling in information. If we move over to the next tab, we now have our push information into Salesforce connector. So here we have update our contact record. We're also using information from the form. So we're looking up the account ID. This is a person account, so we're using the account ID. This might be the contact if it's a different object, whereas the student ID on our form. And we have a formula, which I know is a little technical looking, but it's saying, I wonder if we can show this visually. Let's see. Okay, we have a question that says, this degree is what we have on record. Is it correct? If they say no, then we're going to put the corrected degree, which we saw in Salesforce was updated. And registered to graduate, their address information, if they change any of that, should be stored in Salesforce after they submit their form. The last thing I want to show you is a drag and drop form that you can add to your community site if you're building that for your students. There's a component, form assembly form, drag it onto the page, and you'd put the form ID. Of course, there's more details in our help center on doing that exactly, but I just wanted to show you how you can, in your existing student experiences, help enhance, reduce the work that they have to do, the forms they have to fill out, the repetition, and securely collect the information needed to sync to your CRM so that other departments can use it and the student can have a better experience. That's all that I have for you. Thank you.
That was quick. That was to the point. Amazing. Well done. I really like being able to see that in action, and partially because I think it is important to see how easy it is. And especially I love that you did the let's be a real student and skip this very important step that you're supposed to take, but we all know that they will skip. Okay, Shakima, we are going to unfortunately have to wrap things up pretty quickly here, but I want to kind of talk about the next steps, because leaving, we've sat in this webinar, we've gotten some really incredible insight, and especially Brian and Kelly really gave us a lot of that real world experience and opportunity. So let's talk about the kind of follow-ups. What's your favorite way to learn more about form assembly, to get to know form assembly a little bit better?
For me, I'd say getting in the platform, playing around is the best way to learn, but everyone learns differently as well. So you could also watch videos. We have resources in the blog. So there's something for everyone trying to figure out how to get into it and if it will work for them.
And I think that's a great point. That's what we're here talking about. There's a lot of different ways to learn. And I think the really important points that we've covered today, and you've got them outlined really well on this slide. We're talking about being compliant. We talked a lot about getting that single view and what you can do in terms of speeding up things for your team, for the staff, and how that also improves the student life. Building that connection between students and staff, I think, was a huge and really exciting point. We got some great ideas on change management and some ways that you can sort of come back from, we heard from folks in the audience about the Band-Aids and the Frankenstein approaches and how you can actually come back and hit that simplicity. I asked Brian and Kelly to give me a final thought. Shakima, do you have a final thought for us today?
My final thoughts would be, hopefully, those who are mixing systems or migrating find a place or a home for their students' data that works for both the student and the staff that need to work with that data. And if that place is Salesforce, that would be, I guess, appropriate for this webinar.
That would be lovely. We would love that. Shakima, I want to thank you for being here with us today. Thank you so much for that demo that you had to do 1.5 times. We really appreciate that bonus lab, and thank you very much.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure to be here.
All right, now we are going to wrap things up here, which is always sad for me to say, especially on these Form Assembly webinars. We always have such an incredible collection of speakers, of storytellers, and I just love it. I feel like we get to get into a real roundtable conversation here. But as I said, it's where we go from here. You've gotten all these cool, inspiring stories and ideas. What do you do? What are you taking forward into your organization? So I want to give you a few things that you can do to move forward. First of all, if you haven't already done so, there's a poll that's open right now, and it's an easy yes, no. This is a test everyone's going to get an A+ on. So go and fill out that poll. If you would like to hear a little bit more from a demo, you want a little bit more personalization, if you want to get a personalized email and conversation going, this is how you hit the easy button in your life. So just click yes on that poll, and then you'll get exactly the follow-up that you are looking for. I also want to point out that we've got some resources. They're outlined on the screen for you right now, but if you go over to the Docs tab, you remember we talked about that's your homework, the homework tab, the class assignment handouts. That's the right word. It's been a hot minute since I've been in school. That's your class handouts. So obviously there's an incredible white paper there. You can read a little bit more about moving from legacy systems to modern solutions, how you can transform student data collection and management. A lot of what we've heard about today. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? Read more about that there. You've also got an opportunity to test out the AI assisted form builder. Make sure you've got that, and be sure to book a demo. You got a demo today, and there's lots more that you could dig into and explore. Make sure you get that personalized demo. So make sure you've clicked on that link and open that up. And if you don't, if moving over to the right-hand side of your screen feels like too much work for you right now, we've made it easy. Look, you can just, I love that ticker. I don't know why that makes me so happy every time it's on. Book a demo. I like the magic of it. Click here. I feel like a YouTube, click to subscribe. Okay, so click on book a demo right now, get that demo going, and make sure you've got that follow-up to everything that we just heard here today. Okay, so here's where we're at. You've got the poll open. You can click on the poll. You've got the Docs tab. That's all the wonderful handouts that you're going to take away as you head into your life app post-webinar. And then you've got the demo link there that you're going to click on. That's a lot of great things. One more thing that I'm going to throw into the loop here is that we're going to open up a survey in just a second here. So Riley's going to get that survey up, and that survey is going to ask you a couple of questions. How did you feel about the webinar? If you have more thoughts on blue versus orange backgrounds, that's very important. We want to hear from you. So let us know. What are your thoughts? How did the webinar go for you? You can answer that in the survey there as well. If you have any other questions for Form Assembly, if we didn't get to your question today, I know that we had to kind of flip our order around a little bit, and there were a lot more audience questions that we did not get to. We are responding on live chat, and we are also going to respond over email, so you will get answers back from Form Assembly. So if you still have a question that's kind of rolling around in your brain and you're looking for that answer, get it in right now. There's still time. Get it into the Q&A tab, and Form Assembly will follow up with you after we wrap, so stay tuned for that. All right, well, the very last thing that I've got to get to today before we let you all go, before we adjourn class, back to my fun metaphor. Did your colleges have bells? I think mine had a signal. I don't like a meep. Anyways, I don't remember if it had a bell. In my brain it did, but maybe it didn't. We're going to do a little bit of a prize giveaway. So we have a $250 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live and present. Joseph says their bell tower chimes every 15 minutes. Come on, no, that would, I don't know how you would get any work done. It's ridiculous. Hopefully not true. But okay, so we have a $250 Amazon gift card going. Yeah, Jenna says that's a little extra. Emily's chimes at 5. That's nice. Just let people know, 5 o'clock, get home. You guys are all mad at me now because I told you I said prize and then I got distracted by the chat. So let's get it together, Jess. I know it's the first webinar back after the holidays, but come on, stay focused. Here we go. $250 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here live and present at the webinar and meeting all of those wonderful prize terms and conditions. Our special winner today is Rob Curtin of Virginia. Rob Curtin of Virginia. Congratulations to you, Rob. Now, as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. All right, my friends. Well, with that, on behalf of the Smart Brief team, I want to say a big thank you to Salesforce and to Form Assembly for making this entire event possible. A giant thank you to Brian, to Kelly, and to Shakima for such an interesting chat, for a really wonderful discussion and demo. And my biggest high fives, my biggest thank yous go to all of you, all of my shiniest gold stars. Go to the folks that took time out of their day to join. I know, and I saw a few of you saying, hey, this is your first kind of week coming back in after the holidays. I also know we're approaching Blue Monday. I know that things feel busy and tough, and it can be hard to stop and engage in creative thinking when we're just running that race. So each and every single one of you today took time to come and be creative, to be innovative, to think not about where we are, but where we could go. You know, we talked about the beautiful architectural landscapes of universities, and got to wander through our campus halls and our minds today. And what we're working to do here is really bring that digital and technological foundation up to match those wonderful, beautiful walls that we all love and appreciate. So I hope that you're feeling inspired, you're excited, you're ready to address some of those concerns and build on some of these opportunities. I can't wait to hear where all of you go from here. I hope that I get to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.